سيد أنا رجعت على لبنان، أتمنى أنك ترجع كمان على لبنان.
قرار صادر من مجلس الجامعة تسمية حزب الله الإرهابي.
Good afternoon, you're watching the English newscast on Future Television. I'm Linda Tanin, and these are today's headlines. Telecoms Minister Boutros Harb vows to hunt down illegal internet providers, saying they're linked to Israel and pose a danger to Lebanon's national security. Health Minister Wael Abu Fahoud reveals that the majority of wheat samples recently tested in Lebanon contain cancer-causing substances. And Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Adel al-Jubair says Russia's partial withdrawal of forces from Syria is a very positive step. Telecommunications Minister Boutros Harb has vowed to hunt down illegal internet providers, saying they were linked to Israel and thus posed a danger to Lebanon's national security. In a televised news conference, Harb said, quote, "We will not allow the violation of the country's sovereignty and national security. This is an attack on the Lebanese people's privacy, and we will not allow these dangerous crimes to pass without punishment." His comments came a day after two Lebanese nationals were indicted for installing unauthorized internet networks east of Beirut. Harb said the ministry's findings have been referred to judiciary and security authorities. While investigations are ongoing, the minister said there was no doubt that the people behind these illegal internet networks were also behind the El Barouk network, which was found to have satellite connections with Israel in 2009. Parliament Speaker Nabih Berri has called for a strict follow-up of illegal internet providers in the country moments after Harb's speech. During his weekly meeting with MPs at his Ain Atine residence, Berri said the scandal has violated the attacked the sovereignty of the Lebanese people. Speaking to the media after the meeting, Hezbollah MP Hassan Fadlallah said Parliament was now in charge over the issue. Health Minister Wael Abu Fahoud has revealed that the majority of wheat samples recently tested in Lebanon contained cancer-causing substances. In a news conference dedicated to the topic, the minister called for a temporary ban on the wheat import. As he said, 4 out of 7 samples taken from this wheat show that it contains ochratoxin, a cancerous substance. He also said 30 to 40% of wheat processing plants in the country were surrounded by garbage, noting that it posed health risks to the workers. Most of the wheat sold in Lebanon is locally produced, but large portions are also imported from Russia and other countries. After conducting tests, Abu Fahoud said American wheat was compatible with health standards, whereas Russian wheat was not. He urged the Ministry of Finance to press the Customs Department to block wheat imports until investigations are concluded. The We Want Accountability group has denounced the Cabinet's most recent trash plan as another example of the government's corruption and warned of new and surprising escalatory measures. In its first official statement since the Cabinet announced its temporary plan to open new landfills in Bush Hamoud and Costa Brava and reopen the infamous Name landfill for 2 months, the activist group asked why the government wasn't focused on setting up recycling plants. They also questioned why funds owed to municipalities were still not referred to local government councils so they can begin decentralizing the waste sector and recycling. They claim the new trash plan violates international treaties such as the Basel Convention on Hazardous Waste Disposal and the Barcelona Declaration to depollute the Mediterranean Sea. The group also criticized the decision to task Suklin and Sukomi with carrying out waste pickup and disposal for Beirut and Mount Lebanon. Delegations representing the Syrian government headed by Bashar Jafari have arrived in Geneva to meet with UN mediator Staffan de Mistura for the first time since Russia announced it would pull troops out of the country. The Syrian government and the Western-backed opposition are holding UN-mediated peace talks in Geneva as part of a diplomatic push launched with US-Russian support to end the conflict. On Monday, Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that the main part of the Russian military contingent in Syria would start to withdraw. As of today, just under half of Russia's fixed-wing strike force based in Syria had flown out of the country, according to a Reuters calculation based upon state TV footage. Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Adel al-Jubair says Russia's partial withdrawal of forces from Syria is a very positive step. adding he hoped it will compel President Bashar al-Assad to make concessions. Speaking to reporters in Riyadh, he said, quote, "It is our hope that it will contribute to an acceleration of the political process based on the Geneva I Declaration, and that it will compel the Assad regime to make the concessions necessary to bring about a political transition." UN Special Envoy for Syria, Staffan de Mistura, says he will analyze and compare the demands from the Syrian government and the opposition to shape a common position. His remarks came after a meeting he held with the main Syrian opposition group, known as the High Negotiations Committee.
I did get a paper from the government side. They may want to share it with you or not. My duty is to actually do exactly what I mentioned. And I am getting, and I will be getting paper from the opposition. We will analyze them, see whether we can make out of that a UN paper, for instance, or whether we can actually add to it. That's the principle of negotiations, by the way. But I do feel that there is a difference. And the difference has been caused by three factors, and there's been a sense of urgency. And those factors have been caused, unfortunately, by also the refugee crisis, has been certainly caused by the new factor that we saw yesterday starting to change of the Russian military intervention, and certainly by the advances, or at least the defeat of Daesh. All this has produced a new momentum. We are having Russia and America talking and being part, basically, of a common operations center. And they are co-chairing two task forces. And we have 18 countries who are actually meeting, and they are meeting in the task forces. So all that leads me to want to believe that even if we are going to have a very rocky time, and we know why, we have a mechanism that we didn't have before, and certainly neither my two predecessors had that type of privilege. Neither of unified Security Council. There's been so far, as you know, a issue of humanitarian aid and of reduction of violence. But on the detainees aspect, we have been having extremely, if possibly nothing, in terms of outcome. And I think the humanitarian task force can be tasked with that. And I think through us, the HNC will raise that, and I'm sure others will do the same.
Republican candidate Donald Trump strengthens his lead in the U.S. presidential elections. That's coming up next. In the refugee and migrant crisis, more children and women are on the move than men. They actually make up 60% of recent arrivals to Greece, compared to less than 30% in June of 2015. Most of them are forced to make the dangerous trek into Europe on their own after their husbands, fathers or brothers were killed or otherwise separated. Thousands of women with children are now at Greece's northern border with the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia, some waiting for weeks, hoping to be allowed northwards.
This is no man's land, and these are its people, women and children, thousands of them, waiting in Idomeni camp near the border of Greece and the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Women whose husbands, fathers, brothers are dead, missing, or in another country. Nisrin Shiko is here with her 5 children. Her husband was killed by a bomb in Aleppo 3 years ago. Her family's flight from war came to a halt here.
حاسة إنه كثير صعب. أنا أولادي نعيش هون. ما فيني أتحمل، ما في. يعني صار لي 10 أيام هون ولا يوم نمت برياحة. هن بيناموا أنا لا.
She has a small handful of photos, her only possessions, and her only link to a happier past. A mother alone with her children, like tens of thousands of other women in exile. Her life is a daily struggle.
كثير صعب مع 5 أولاد. وبارحة لما أجيت نزلت المطر أولادي كلهم بللوا بالمي، حتى البطانيات. نشفتهم ونيمتهم وأنا من بارحة ماني نايمة.
Life here is a long lineup for food. Her children are hungry. Sickness stalks them. And Nisrin's small savings are dwindling fast.
صعبة. يعني قبل أنا كنت ربة بيت وجوزي كل بالكل. والله أنا صرت مرة ورجال بنفس الوقت، كثير صعب.
UNHCR works to support Greece in helping these women and explains to the women themselves that they can apply for asylum here. UNHCR also tells refugees about safe and legal ways to travel to other countries in Europe through relocation or family reunification. Evening in Idomeni, a frightened family seeks heat and comfort around a fire. Tomorrow may offer neither.
Moving on to the U.S., Republican presidential frontrunner Donald Trump has scored a major win in the Florida primary, dealing a bitter defeat to his rival Marco Rubio, a senator from the state who dropped out of the race afterward. The New York businessman won in North Carolina, but will split the delegates there with Texas Senator Ted Cruz. Former U.S. Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, meanwhile, increased her lead in the number of delegates against her opponent, Senator Bernie Sanders, in the Democratic race. She captured the Florida primary and won North Carolina, Ohio, and Illinois as she put distance between herself and Sanders. Denmark overtook Switzerland as the world's happiest place, according to a report that urged nations, regardless of wealth, to tackle inequality, protect the environment, and keep their country's social fabric from tearing apart. The 65-page report, prepared by the Sustainable Development Solutions Network and the Earth Institute at Columbia University, showed that Syria, Afghanistan, and 8 sub-Saharan countries were rated the 10 least happy places on Earth to live. The top 10 this year were Denmark, Switzerland, Iceland, Norway, Finland, Canada, the Netherlands, New Zealand, Australia, and Sweden.
So a report like this is a message not only to poor countries, even some inexpensive ways to do better, focus on health, focus on improving the honesty of government. Doesn't cost a lot of money, and it can be done. It's a message to rich countries also, like the United States, that have a kind of pure money mentality and have let the social fabric fall apart. There's a very strong message for my country, the United States, which is very rich, has gotten a lot richer over the last 50 years, but has gotten no happier. And the message for the United States is clear. For a society that just seems to chase money, we're chasing the wrong things for what the public really needs and wants. Our social fabric is deteriorating. Social trust is deteriorating. Faith in government is deteriorating. You know, when it comes to the Middle East and when it comes to regions in turmoil, obviously a country in turmoil ranks just at the bottom. And these conflicts are causing devastating losses of well-being. You don't need a PhD to know that. This is self-evident.
This marks the end of our bulletin for today. Now for a reminder of our headlines. Telecoms Minister Boutros Harab vows to hunt down illegal internet providers, saying they are linked to Israel and pose a danger to Lebanon's national security. Health Minister Wael Abu Fahoud reveals that the majority of weed samples recently tested in Lebanon contain cancer-causing substances. And Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Adel Jubeir says Russia's partial withdrawal of forces from Syria is a very positive step. Those are your top stories for today. I'm Linda Tamim signing off.
بقول له يا سيد أنا رجعت على لبنان، أتمنى إنك ترجع كمان على لبنان.
قرار صادر من مجلس الجامعة تسمية حزب الله الإرهابي.